listen, Bruce was involved in some of the biggest Florida shows. He did Battle of the Belts. Dusty booked him in shows down in the Bahamas.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce was a well-liked, if not loved, referee. Okay? And I won't get into reasons why, but just Bruce was very, very well liked. Okay? For a lot of reasons. And, there was just, he had a fun way about him. Ric Flair loved him. Absolutely loved him. And like on some of the bigger shows at like the Orange Bowl and stuff like that, Bruce refereed some pretty high profile matches and stuff like that.
Bruce did the ring announcing on one of them because the announcer got sick and Bruce had to announce.
Bruce, actually, before Bruce refereed, Bruce was the South Florida ring announcer for the Florida office. And sometimes he would do it for Crockett too, depending on whether or not, he came down. But yeah, when Bruce moved from announcer to referee, Dana Taylor started doing the ring announcing, and he was horrible. But I love Dana. Dana was one of our guys also. But Bruce, he did ring announcing. That's where he started with in the South Florida area.
Yeah, we're talking about ring announcers. I'm going to throw another name at you. Blake Chadwick. Good friend, Blake Chadwick.
Oh, the man, the myth. He is great. He is fantastic. Blake should be working for WWE, and I don't know why he's not. Like, straight out. He is the best young play-by-play guy there is, period. I think he's better than anybody that they have on their roster right now, including people on Raw and SmackDown. With the exception of Michael Cole. Yeah.
I told Blake.
Like literally with the exception of Michael Cole. And I know, I know Blake is like one of your best friends. He's just a solid talent. One of the best things that Bobby Rogers ever did was recommend him to Paul Jones. And I remember when we were first putting our television together, initially I was gonna like seriously bring Mick Tarch down from Minnesota. And right. I remember Paul said you should listen to Blake. I said, nah, the guy's too young. Like, listen to him. Like, I want you to go. And Paul Jones sent me a couple of Blake's matches, and I sat and listened to him. I watched how he called it, and he was still young and he was still a little rough, but for what we needed, I thought he would be perfect. And so, I made him the offer to do the play-by-play, and then Larry came up with the idea of using Simon Says as our color, and that was our first broadcast team was Blake and Simon.
Right.
And Blake just did a fantastic job, and Blake has grown and grown and grown and grown since, look, we did those first TV tapings 10 years ago, right? 2012.
Yeah. Wow.
It was 10 years ago. This August is literally 10 years ago we did those first Ring Warrior tapings at Club Cinema.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Look how much Blake has grown in those 10 years. He's really
right.
come into his own. And when we did the stuff with WGN, and the fact that he actually, one of the shows he actually did on his own, no color commentator, he did play-by-play in color on his own, was unheard of in today's world.
Right.
And I put him up against anybody. So.
Yes, he's our boy, but we love to take shots at him because he's our boy.
We do. We take shots at him
all the time.
What are you taking shots at this guy for?
Because he's Blake. Why not?
Like what can you say bad about Blake Chadwick?
It's friendly.
He looks too good. Hold on. He looks too pretty.
Well, I'll give you a clue in. He has a tendency to go to Ben's house to watch pay-per-views and only bring food for himself and no one else.
Oh, well, that's not cool.
Yes!
Yeah.
He does it every time.
And not even, here's the other scenario, Howard. It's not even that. We've been ribbing him for literally like 5 or 6 years, maybe more over this. But it's not even the fact that he doesn't spend his own money. Even just let us know you're swinging by somewhere, and we would happily Venmo you money. We're not asking you to pay for it, but let us know you're swinging by Cheesecake Factory or Five Guys or whatever. Yes, we might want something from there. Instead of having to smell your food and watch you eat it all by yourself, prison style, with like a stabbing fork in your hand in case anyone comes too close to you. You know?
We give him shit about it all the time.
He probably now does it just for the sake of continuing the rib, right?
Right.
So what's good for the goose is good for the gander,
True
right?
enough.
So I got another name for you. You ready?
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
Lou Spector.
Wow. Lou is actually Lou is actually a real interesting cat. Nice guy. Look, I got nothing against Lou at all.
I do.
Lou sometimes, I think, makes himself out to be bigger than he really is in the wrestling business, or more important, or more of an influence.
You mean always?
Always. He's everybody's best friend. Oh, this guy's my best friend. We were great friends. And I don't know if he was or wasn't, great friends with some of these people that he claimed to have been. Look, I will tell you this, God's honest truth. When I talked about doing my retirement show, Lou actually reached out to me and just said, hey, I may have a way for you to do your retirement show. It won't cost you any money. And he was like straightforward with me about it. So, like, I got nothing bad to say about Lou.
That's disappointing.
Except I think just, sometimes I think he puts himself, like I know there was a conversation or there was some kind of a thread I read not too long ago talking about the big show that Bobby Rogers did at the Bergeron Rodeo Arena.
Yeah.
And it was the night that it was Abdullah and Dusty, and Kevin Sullivan, and Terry Funk all did that crazy show. And I know Bobby Rogers paid a shitload of money to these guys to do that match. And from what I was reading into the thread, that Lou basically was taking credit for a lot of the promotion and a lot of the people who were there.
Mm-hmm.
And in having a conversation with Bobby basically said, Lou really wasn't involved at all with that. So, he wasn't sure where Lou was coming from on that. So, I look at things like that.
Nothing to do with it.
Right. So I look at things like that. And like I said, it's not a knock against Lou, because I think what Lou is doing with CCW right now, I know he's out hustling and he's doing promotion, and they're killing it. They're doing a lot of shows. They're doing, they're doing pretty decent at the gate. So whatever he's doing right now seems to be working, and God bless him, because he's figured out a formula maybe that other people don't have.
One of the things he likes to do is lean into the heat and lean into the character and the slime and the Lou, the Lou image and the Lou opinion, Well,
bear something in mind. What his gimmick is not far from the truth of what he is.
He's true.
And that's probably what makes him so effective. There's a very, very thin line in between there. And it's really interesting, because a lot of times I'll have an opinion on something, and he'll contact me. He'll say, you don't realize how much closer we are to our opinion in something that we agree on as opposed to something we disagree on. And I do notice that a lot of things that he posts about, I do have a tendency to agree with. It's how he gets there maybe is a little bit different than my approach to a specific thing. But like I said, when I see people who are trying to rewrite history, or they're trying to, and again, this goes with the whole thing with Jeff and Bruce and, and other people who paint a page of history saying that, they were bigger than what they were. I just don't like that. It's offensive to
And
me.
he's in that
because
camp.
I was there.
He's in that camp.
Well, because I was there.
Yeah.
It's like I know it didn't exist. It didn't happen.
Right.
It's just like it never took place.
Well,
but tell me something that does.
And honestly, like when you're talking 20 years later or so, it's revisionist history, and I think that Lou feels free to exaggerate or lie outright about things because some people aren't around to dispute it anymore. It's just been a long amount of time, and other people.
Well, yeah.
Other people aren't going to catch a whiff of it. Or if they do, it's an eternal thing like you and Bobby talking. Bobby doesn't go online and then write a scathing fucking thing. It's just not worth his time or whatever the case.
Well, yeah, well, right. Well, the thing is, it's like, at the end of the day, like, who gives a shit?
Right.
Is what it comes down to. Yeah.
It's not worth his time. It's not worth his time. Yeah.
No. It's like I'll call Bruce out for posting the picture, right?
Right.
But in the grand scheme, do I give a shit that Bruce posted the picture and said it was from Madison Square Garden? No, I don't care.
No, it's more funny than anything at this point, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's like, okay, haha,
yeah, it's
whatever.
It's that Bruce being Bruce,
that'd be like
that's how it is,
saying like, I made my debut on Raw, 30 years ago. It's like, come on,
right?
It's like, and I know what you were talking about because you mentioned this earlier. That guys who are on the Indies. They have one match, or they're part of the when they used to do that party for the one guy who come out and be part of
Adam Rose thing.
Adam Rose.
They say, "Oh yeah, I made my debut on Raw this week." No, you didn't do anything. You're part of a fucking party scene.
Right.
You didn't make a debut. You're not a former WWE superstar. None of that.
There was a moment in time where those people would then vaguely post their WWE check for appearing as that for that one-off, and they would show like obscured angle of the WWE check and the WWE letter, envelope, but it didn't say what it was for or how much it was for, but it was like my first WWE paycheck, and it's like, unless you know, you're.
I can tell you my first WWF paycheck was for like $150 for an article that I wrote for their magazine back in '83.
Right.
Okay. When I did their television, even though it was an angle to help the NWA, I got a fee for doing that. Dennis Corluzzo and I both received $500 each to be on WWF television.
There's some minimum like amount for appearing on television.
Which I thought was cool. Look, they gave me $500. They flew me up to Connecticut. They put me in the hotel and into the hotel room.
Some kind of scale.
Yeah, it was fine.
Right.
And the best part of the whole thing was I got to speak to Howard Finkel because he took care of all the travel arrangements for me.
Right.
Howard was great. Howard knew everything about everybody.
I got one last thing. This has been bothering me for years, and we've got to get to the bottom of it. I need to know what happened and how did Fruitgate happen. I need to know why Fruitgate occurred in Miami, Florida, where you only fed us fruit for 12 hours.
Hold on. If that's the only other thing on your list, I have a person to bring up too. But go ahead with Fruitgate.
Okay. So Fruitgate, you're gonna have to speak to Larry Brandon on that because I was not involved.
We got to get Larry.
I was not involved.
Larry's coming
I was not involved in the food in Miami. So when we did these TV tapings in Pompano, I made arrangements with the local Subway to provide the food. Okay. When we went to Miami and we shot out of the channel, what did I call it? Channel 2 or Channel 13 or whatever the hell station that was down there. The PBS affiliate in Miami, I forget where it was. But we shot out of their studios, 2 days worth of tapings. And there was like no food places around. So instead, we took a budget, and Larry went and got fruit from like Publix or something, and that's how Fruitgate came about. So we provided fruit. We provided some, Larry always said that the guys were starting to eat healthier. They weren't, eating the garbage that, the older wrestlers were eating. They would actually have, more healthy meals and things like that. So I think that was the whole thing with Fruitgate. And I think JoJo actually, it was either JoJo or Vito. One of them came up with the name Fruitgate. I forget which one.
If I had to guess, it was JoJo, because he's an instigator,
Probably.
like all day long.
Yeah, but JoJo's harmless enough, though.
It was the most bananas.
He was part of the Buffet Brothers, so he's harmless enough.
Was that the same show that Billy came and left before he taped?
Yes, he did. What happened was, okay, so we were supposed to. We knew Billy wasn't going to be able to wrestle, and he had a very short window to come in. He was supposed to come in, do a promo with Scoot. They were going to kind of split up, and then we were going to set them up to be able to basically drop the title at a later date. So Billy showed up. We were running late in production. I was tied up with one thing. He was supposed to get together with Larry. Larry was not available. Billy waited around, and then basically said, "Look, I just, I came down here, but to shoot my promo, but there's no time. I'm just going to leave." And he left.
Well, there's a very famous video that I think the instigator JoJo shot.
Like "fuck you" or something like that.
Of Billy making
it. Like Billy, listen, but Billy wakes up in the morning and says "fuck you" to the clock. So,
I agree. Billy is definitely the grouchiest person.
Yeah, but that whole thing's it's the world's biggest work, and it's the greatest thing ever. It's like like I tease him, like Billy, like legitimately is a badass guy and can beat the shit out of pretty much any of the workers. I always tell him, like, when I'm speaking to him or something, or if I have something going online, I was telling him, like, Billy, do I got to come down and stretch you now or something? Something to that effect, and he always laughs about it because he knows, like, I don't mean anything by it. But Billy is Billy was a good talent, and we did something special with him and Scoot on our television, but it couldn't materialize. These guys really were retired when we decided to go into that angle, and it was going to be it was always supposed to be a short-term thing, never long-term. So when he came down to do the promo and wasn't there, and I think it was Jason or Anthony or somebody shot the video backstage. I forget who it was.
JoJo, of course, always.
It was JoJo, wasn't me.
100%, always JoJo. JoJo loves to stir the shit more than anybody I know.
Yeah, well, look, we even gave JoJo a win on television over Maxwell Chicago. So.
Well, I mean, just the
way.
way
He did have a good match against Carino, though.
He did.
Have a great
I
match
actually
with
remember that.
Steve.
He did.
Yeah, he had a great match with Steve, actually.
So now that AJ's thrown a couple names at you, and you've kind of I think you've disappointed him by not shooting on a couple of these guys like Lou Spector. I want to know what the
hold on, but what is there to shoot on Lou Spector? Talk about that he's involved in the porn industry. He is, and he admits it.
Yeah.
So like what can I say bad about the guy that he doesn't denigrate himself about?
That's what I said. He does lean into it. It's hard to shoot on the guy when he leans into it, embraces
There's really
it,
nothing to shoot on him about, though.
He's a seedy, lying motherfucker. He's a greasy, fucking seedy motherfucker.
Hey, well, you shooting on him.
I
don't see him that way because I haven't been that way with him, but I do remember certain things that he would say or would do when he would come to our shows. I thought one of the funniest things was, the very first show we did at the Armory, he thought Anthony was responsible for bringing in this whole crowd of people. And I remember him coming to Paul Jones, and he says, like, oh my God, I can't believe how big Anthony is over in this neighborhood. Look at all these people that came in to see him. Well, what happened was we made a deal with, I forget the group. It was a club that was not too far away from the Armory. They were like across the street. And we gave
like
them
a
like,
YMCA.
yeah, it was something like that. But it was a group, and we for every show we always gave them like 200-300, however many people they wanted to bring, they would bring. And they brought like 100 people this first night, and it was like a busload of kids. And because you were wrestling against the Beast that night, the whole crowd got behind you because he scared the hell out of all of them. When he came out, and it was like the opening, and it was like opening match.
It was opening match, and we
Yeah.
switched it like because we realized that we literally switched it in the ring.
Right. So Lou was impressed, thinking that you had all this influence over this crowd, and you brought them in. So that's the only thing. Like sometimes he didn't get, and he didn't understand that sometimes we padded the audience. You know, we gave away tickets to make sure that there were people in there because nobody wants to wrestle in front of 15 people, you know?
And those kids were crazy that night.
Oh, they were so into everything. Yeah, it was great.
So,
All right, so Ben, who do you want to bring up aside from me not burying?
the only one I'm
Inspector?
curious of, because I don't know the history between you two, but I see a little bit of, not recently, but like a couple of years ago, I saw a little bit of aggression between you and Ron Nemi.
I don't even want to discuss him, honestly. Just, look, Ron is good for what Ron is. When we were making the decision for our WGN announce team, okay, Ron was actually in the running to be Blake's partner.
Right.
The decision was made to let Larry be Blake's partner, and Larry ended up being not great on TV. But the reason being is we actually, and this is something a lot of people do not know, Blake and Larry actually did a audition for AAA. So we did one episode of AAA Wrestling that our distributor in England was doing, because they took care of AAA on an international basis, and they wanted a new English announcing team. So Larry and Blake, as a team, did a AAA taping. They were so great together on that there was real chemistry. And it was a different type of chemistry than Blake had with Simon. Okay? Like Simon was too comical. Okay? He was fine for what we needed at the time, but to go to the next level, to be like on WGN, he was not serious enough. Larry brought a certain seriousness to what he was doing, and the other feeling was, look, Larry being my co-booker and writing all the shows with me would know every storyline, would know every angle, would know exactly what we're doing, and he can help lead the program in the direction that we would need to lead it. So the decision was made that it was going to be Blake and Larry. Ron took great offense at this, but of course, me being me, he attacked me on stuff, and on a pretty regular basis. I don't know if it was jealousy or whatever the hell it was, because I always was able to move a product in a certain direction. Okay? I was always able to move a needle in the sense of, look, here's a product, whether we were doing, whether we were on in Singapore or whether we were on WGN, I always had something, and it was always given an opportunity to, whether it was opportunities to the wrestlers or opportunities to announcers. etc. And I guess he wanted that opportunity, and we weren't going to give it to him. And listen, as Simon says, John, if anybody, he was the one that felt like as an outsider, because he really did a good job on the shows that he did do with Blake. Just that we wanted a little bit of a different type of setting, and we made the decision to go with Larry rather than, if it was going to be a toss-up, we would have stuck with Simon. We wouldn't have gone with Ron.
Right. So if anyone had a right to have sour grapes, it would have been Simon, not Ron, for sure.
And Simon was hurt. Simon was very, very hurt that we didn't, bring him to go with us.
Right.
Legitimately so. He was, and he had a good reason to. Listen, Simon was very, very good at what he did. But one of the things was we needed somebody who can go to another level. And at the time, didn't have enough time to kind of nurture him. Because Simon, I don't think at the time was ready to be a national voice.
Right. Well,
I agree. I do agree with that, though. I agree with that.
That's fair. I just always see, like, every now, again, back a few years ago was more like more of a thing, but every now and then, like Ron taking a shot, and I never knew what it was about. I just knew he was. Well, listen, he was taking shots at Howard.
Take shots. Listen, Ron's gonna always he can continue to hit shots. Worst case scenario is gonna hurt my knee because that's as far as he's gonna get. Just being the midget that he is. What can I tell you?
This is the stuff we came for right here. More
there it is.
More fuck this guy and that guy's a midget. We love it.
Who else you got?
I don't have anything. I don't have anyone else. I did listen, I did a little bit of prep work for this. I mean, I know this isn't going to be the only time we talk to you, so it's not the end of the world if we don't cover everything. But I was curious about something you did before wrestling called the Night Chronicles.
Oh, okay. We'll go into pop culture. Yeah, man.
Because what was that? Like a horror radio show kind of thing?
What happened was when I was in college,
like a Twilight Zone type of deal.
Kind of, sorta. We did a thing. My ex-wife and I. She was my fiance at the time.
It's another thing. I'm surprised. I didn't know you were ever married. To be honest with you, so that popped me too.
I was married. I was married twice to a female.
The same one?
Wow. I was going to say something too.
I was married twice to the same person. Yep.
To a girl. Yeah, go on.
No, we were married 11 years, got divorced, got remarried, and stayed married for 5 more years before the second divorce.
Right. You had to make sure.
I didn't know that.
You had to make sure.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So while we were in college, I used to write for a magazine called Starlog.
Very familiar with it. They made Fangoria also.
Yeah, they made Fangoria. They also did a magazine called Comic Scene.
Yeah.
And I wrote for Comic Scene. So I met George Perez was through was when I was writing for Comic Scene, and they had one of the first comic conventions in Gainesville. At the time, I met George Perez, and I met a couple of other people up there. But anyway, and for those who have no idea who George Perez is, of course, one of his most famous creations is Crisis on Infinite Earths.
He is a huge artist in the comic industry. He just recently passed away, but he may be the most prolific artist other than maybe Jack Kirby and John Byrne.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right up there. He's right up there. Like, I don't know if there's any other artists that have created more work in the comic book industry than maybe those 3 names. And George Perez is either...
and the breadth and the...
Yeah,
right.
Right.
The breadth and the scope of what he's created is amazing.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely amazing.
Exactly. And a sweetheart of a man. Like, he would sing show tunes with you. He always had time to talk to you. Would remember your name when he would run into you again. Just a tremendous human being. Absolutely.
So the first time I met him, I actually had him. He did a drawing for me, which was Howard the Duck getting his head cut off by Conan the Barbarian, like with the blade and the blade coming through and cut off Howard the Duck's head. And I had this for the longest time, and having moved so many times over the years, it just got lost. I never knew where it was. So a couple of years ago, I was going to actually commission him to do a different work for me because I had this idea for like a super team that I wanted him to draw. And that's when he started having problems with his eyesight, and he stopped doing a lot of the commission work. So like if you didn't have a ready commission piece in place, he wasn't going to do a new one. So I never got it done, but yeah, I was willing to pay for his stuff. Just a phenomenal guy. But anyway, so Night Chronicles, basically, I used one of my interviews that I did for Starlog is I wrote about, now we're talking about like the early 80s here. We're talking about like 81, 82.
Right.
So I did an interview with Adam West on the new Batman movie because he wanted to play Batman. And of course, the producers, they didn't want him to play Batman. They felt they wanted to go in a much more serious direction. But I got to meet Adam, and I got to be friends with him. So when I came up with this idea to do this half-hour kind of like news show about science fiction, fantasy, and horror, it would include an interview with a personality. It would include some news about different movies or different comic books or books or whatever the hell it would be. And then we would play like a song, a musical piece, something that had to do with whatever the theme was for that particular show. So the very first show we did was an interview with Adam West. And because of that, I was able to line up other guests. And we had some great guests, like Vincent Price. I had him on, which was one of my favorites. And then I actually had a couple of interviews that never made it to the air. We actually lost our sponsorship before it made it to the air. But one of my greatest interviews, and I actually have it on a reel-to-reel audio tape. And if I could ever find a reel-to-reel audio player, I would actually transfer it over. It's an interview I did with a writer by the name of Isaac Asimov.
I read a lot of his books back in the 80s.
And Isaac Asimov is probably the most prolific writer in history, period. He has written something for like every area of the Dewey Decimal System. So he's written science fiction, like all sorts of stuff.
I would argue that Stephen King may have caught up to him by now, but yes, he wrote a shitload.
So speaking of Stephen King, I also, as you probably know, that I worked with Stephen King's son as well.
I saw that too. That you had licensed something or other.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. I'll get to that in a second. So we had these different different guests on Night Chronicles, and then we would play music, and we would have some different things, and we only ran for like 8 weeks. It was not very long, but it was some of the greatest stuff that I think I've ever done because I got to meet so many people, and I talked to so many people like off the record about stuff. Like Vincent Price was trying to get Orson Welles to come on the show with me, and it was like a great story, like him telling me about going out to dinner with Orson Welles. I couldn't put it on the show because he was saying some really nasty stuff, but but like the stuff about Orson Welles was fantastic, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to get Orson Welles on the show. And actually Vincent Price tried to get Orson Welles to come on the show with me, but he would not agree to come on.
I mean, that's a
but I was like,
that's a huge ask. If you had gotten that, that's like that would have
Oh yeah,
that's impressive.
yeah. But Vincent Price, was like the coolest guy.
Yeah.
Like when I was interviewing him, he was just like, he was easy to talk to. He was very forthcoming. He had just done Thriller, so he did the voice on Thriller, which was like the biggest album in the world
Which was
at the time.
Probably like a small shot in the arm for him in terms of like, he'd had like a 50, 60-year career to that point.
Absolutely.
And then, to just be like the voice in a music video that is the height, like the peak of pop culture in like whatever year Thriller. I mean, I remember like we would know, like MTV would say when the next time Thriller was airing, and we would keep checking our watch to go tune into the TV to watch Thriller when it came on again. The extended version.
Vincent Price scared the shit out of me. He scared the shit. Like as a kid, I was so petrified of him just because of Thriller, because the way he, like in the beginning, he was scary as shit.
I think most people nowadays either know him from Thriller or from Edward Scissorhands. They don't know the older stuff.
Yeah.
They don't know the older stuff. But
no, and his older stuff is great stuff.
Right. Fall the House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum,
House of the Long
House
Shadows,
of Wax, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, House of the Long Shadows was one of my favorite of his. Just some great stuff. And like I said, super nice guy to talk to, and that was like one of my. But my favorite conversation of anybody that I ever interviewed was Isaac Asimov, because it was the funniest call I had ever had with somebody who was of a celebrity manner, because I call Isaac Asimov and I leave him my voice, I leave him a message, and I don't hear back from him. So I call him the following week, and he gets on the phone. And I said, I left you a voicemail. He goes, yeah, I tried calling the phone number. He says, but it says it was the wrong area code. And he's reading me, and he gives me a 305. Now, at the time, I'm living in Gainesville, and Gainesville was I think it was 813 at the time, or 407, whatever it was. It was before they had so many different area codes. It was still only 3 area codes, 4 area codes in
so 305 was
Florida.
Like South Florida, yeah.
Yes, 305 was South Florida. It was 813 was the West Coast. 407 was up in the middle, and then 904, was up by Jacksonville.
Right.
And that was it. There was nothing else, right? So, so he sits there and he says, he goes, well, I dialed 305. I go, 305? So he was looking at a map, an area code map from 1960, where the whole state of Florida was 305. It's wow. It's you're a little outdated there, Isaac. To me, it was funny because he's one of the most prolific guys ever. With just the wrong piece of reference material.
But that's why he's so cloistered up writing all day. He's not. He's a little eccentric, and he doesn't update his information.
Exactly.
Well, I got one more name when you're ready, and I think this is probably one that's going to take.
Well, let Howard talk about the Stephen King connection, and then we'll do that.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Okay, so Stephen King. So I'm out actually. I produced a little radio segment for radio stations called Squared Circle. And it was this little 2-minute piece. It was a daily piece supposed to be played during morning shows. And I'm out hustling, trying to sell this thing. And one of the radio stations that contacts me is in Bangor, Maine, WZLN, and a guy by the name of Mark Wellman. Mark Wellman's the program director at WZLN. He's also the promotions manager. Well, WZON is owned by Stephen King. So they want the wrestling show, but they also have these little vignettes that Stephen King put together, and they want to know if I would be interested in marketing it for them. So, of course, I'm looking at Stephen King as being a freaking cash cow.
Right.
Saying yeah. So the guy flew down to Florida. We wrote up a contract, and now I'm representing Stephen King and selling his thing called Lists That Matter, to radio stations. I should have stuck with the wrestling because nobody was buying that thing.
Really?
I couldn't get a sponsor. I couldn't get anything. I couldn't get enough traction under Stephen King's project to make it worthwhile. And the money that I had already spent on creating the wrestling show, I was actually losing a whole bunch of money. So the whole project ended up going south. So Stephen King was successful in everything except radio, and it's because of me. So.
What a mush you are. Come on, Howard.
I was going to say that. I think you mushed it. Yeah. All right, so one last name here. Bruce Santee. Bruce Santee, because I know I was there for this, so I know you probably got a lot to say.
This is hard, okay? Because I haven't spoken to Bruce in almost 4 years. When we made the decision to move forward with Ring Warriors out here in Vegas, Larry and I made the conscious decision not to include Bruce Santee. Now, there was a lot that went behind that. Bruce was a great champion for us. We put a lot behind him. When Bruce was going through some personal issues and people wanted him to be thrown off our shows and things like that, we stuck behind Bruce and we backed him, and we never let these outside influences, move us off of our position. We were always going to back Bruce. So Bruce was very opinionated, very pig-headed. But Bruce had some personal issues. And Bruce liked to drink, unfortunately. And this is hard for me to talk about because I really do like the guy. And I know that he has recently, from what I've heard through the grapevine, that he has recently gone through some rehab, and he has gotten help, and he is getting healthy, and he is doing much better. And I am very, very glad to hear that. At the time, though, so we did a TV taping in Tampa. And at the TV taping, Bruce showed up drunk and created a lot of problems backstage. We were supposed to run this angle with him and the Sheik. And there was heat between them to begin with. But we felt we squashed it. We came up with this angle that would actually, it would get both of these guys over in their gimmicks. But when Bruce kind of showed up drunk, we kind of had to throw those plans out the window. It wasn't going to work out. And, he didn't want to get into the ring with Bruce, and I don't blame him. He would have been, you cannot get into the ring with somebody who's impaired. Now, Frankie Chiazzo ended up getting into the ring with him just because Bruce was creating a scene backstage and wanted to have a match. And he and Frankie hadn't talked in a while before that match, and they beat the hell out of each other out there, actually.
I believe they had their own issues leading.
They did.
Before
they did.
Yeah.
Right before that.
They hadn't spoken in a long time.
That's true. They didn't talk for a number of months before that incident.
Right.
Okay. But Frankie didn't want there to be an issue, another issue backstage involving law enforcement or anything. So he agreed to be the one to go into the ring with Bruce to shut Bruce up, so Bruce would get his match in front of his crowd because he had family members there and some other stuff. But Bruce was not Bruce. He was not on his best, and he was not as sharp in the ring as he should have been or could have been. and that's through nobody's fault except his own. So when that happened, we made the conscious decision that there was no way we were gonna put any more money or anything behind him, or it was just not gonna. I always felt like I felt that at that point in time, Bruce felt he was entitled, like he was the guy that he was, he carried the banner of the company, and when he did it very well. He protected the company. He went out there and he did his thing for us, and I was always very appreciative of that. When we made the decision not to book him in Vegas, Larry was supposed to contact Bruce ahead of time and tell him what the decision was. So this way, when we started announcing who was on the card and Bruce wasn't going to be part of it, that Bruce wouldn't go flying off the handle anywhere. Okay? Well, Larry didn't engage Bruce and never told him. So, of course, Bruce was pretty pissed off about this.
Especially if he's finding out online as opposed to not hearing.
Yeah, he that's exact. It's the
Right.
same way that Simon found out that he wasn't going to be part of the broadcast team. He found that online. In hindsight, we should have called him and had those conversations with him as well. So, rightfully so, Bruce was upset. Now, we fast forward, and I forget what year it was, and it might have been the following year. And you're going to have to give me a second here because I got to get my thoughts together. Because I'm going to actually look up this date online. Okay.
So while you do that, while you look for that night with Frankie, and they hadn't spoken in a while, and Frankie was actually nervous to get into the ring with Bruce, but he did it because, like you said, he was trying to, he was trying to just smooth everything over. It was to the point
Right.
where Pete Cannon was with us, and Pete, we had some strict instructions that if Bruce flew off the rails, they wanted us to
Yeah, Pete was going to shoot him. Because Pete always carried a gun with him. No, I know.
Well,
that.
Pete had a knife on him at the ring, and I said, I'm not getting involved because I like Bruce. Bruce is my boy. He always has been for
Right.
20 years. I wasn't getting involved in that. And I was like, I knew Bruce would do the business good with Frankie because as much as they had heat and hated each other, they really didn't hate each other. Those guys loved each other forever. So I knew that it wasn't going to fly. But Pete was ready to stab somebody if he had to. And that was the scary part.
So what happened was, so we go ahead and we have our first TV taping in Vegas in August, right? August 2018. Right? Is it August? Whatever the hell. I know we had two tapings.
We did August and October.
Right, okay. So in October, in early October, I'm actually even thinking of a way of how to bring Bruce back. Okay, I'm thinking of I'm trying to think of ways of, I've always been the type of person, I never liked leaving I don't like leaving a piece of history open. I like to have something nice and clean, right? So you have a guy who was an undefeated champion, somebody like Bruce, that never lost the title, right? So it's how can we bring him back? Well, okay, so in October, because we were planning on a later taping, planning on one for December and January. So Leroy Howard, who was Navy SEAL, passes away in early October of 2018. Now, Leroy I had known for years and actually had booked him on shows that I did. I actually got him a tryout with the WWF at the time, with Dory Funk Jr., and actually had them work against each other on a show to show Dory just how good Leroy was. Okay? Now, Bruce doesn't know any of this and has no clue on what my relationship with Leroy is. When Leroy passes away, I posted a little thing online about something about Leroy. And Bruce sends me a private message. And it's like, well, what the hell do you mean by that? And then he's like, starts getting into me about all this ring warrior shit. It's like, you're a snake in the grass, and you could have booked me, and Leroy. And then he goes like, Leroy didn't ever like you. He knew what you were. You're a two-faced person. All this bullshit.
Jesus.
So I'm like, it's like, where the hell is this coming from, Bruce? It's like, I've been nothing but supportive of you. And he's like, the wrong person died. It should have been you who died, not Leroy.
Holy shit.
That's stiff.
So,
that's stiff as hell.
I'm like, really? Like, you know what? I don't fucking need to be talking to you. I don't need to be hearing from you. I don't need to be associating with you. We're done. I stopped all my communication with him, and I blocked him. Now, I don't know if this was him being a drunken asshole that fueled his tirade toward me, but it was uncalled for. It was unjustified. And it's like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this guy anymore. I put my company at risk having him as our champion. Okay, when other people turned their backs on him, we stood behind him. And to be told that, whether it's in the text or a message or verbally or whatever the hell it was at the time, I didn't need that. And it was like, you know what? He's nothing to me. Done. And that's why Bruce never came back to Ring Warriors. He could have, because I believed in him. I really did believe in him. And when we were, and let me tell you something, even after that happened, when, about 2 years ago, we started floating around the idea of actually bringing Ring Warriors back again. Even my retirement show, to give you an idea, what I was thinking of for my retirement show was to actually have Kevin Cross against Bruce. The undefeated champion who never really never lost his title against the guy who technically has the title. But it's like, why put myself out there? Why risk that? So that's what happened with Bruce. Do I forgive him? At this point, I forgive him for what he said. I will never forget it, but I've forgiven him.
I
would,
I feel like, here's what I feel. I feel like, yes, all the suspicions on where his mind was at when he said those things to you and et cetera, I think he's in a completely different place nowadays. I think things were said, feelings are hurt over the course of all this stuff about you guys not using him. It's this, that, and him saying those things to you, et cetera. And I think that neither one, it's kind of one of those things where neither one at this point feels like you could cross the bridge and mend the fences. But I think if you two are in the same room together, enough time has passed from all those things where you could sit down and have a good talk and I'm sure hash it out. But
he has changed dramatically. I have to tell you, he's definitely changed. The way he is, the way he talks in our group chat, he's definitely changed.
Well, like I said, I got no ill feelings towards him.
But like I'm saying, a lot of time has passed where it's like, I don't know that he's even feels like there's an opportunity or an option to reach out and mend a fence. And probably same with you. Like, and so much time has passed. It's just like you've grown accustomed to not talking to him as opposed to having him in your life again.
Listen,
you know what I mean?
It's like look, I'm not planning on doing any shows anytime soon. If I was, would I consider using him? Yeah. I will always listen. One thing I learned from Dusty was you don't have to like somebody. You don't have to get along with somebody to do business with them. It's like, is it going to be good for your business? Is it going to help you for your business? And the answer is yeah. I don't have to be the guy's friend to book somebody. But, at this point in time, I'm not booking any shows or anything like that. So, Is there a need to talk to the guy? Look, if the guy ever wanted to reach out and legitimately wanted to apologize for what he said, because there was no reason to say what he did.
Right. I agree.
We already apologized to him for not doing the right thing by not telling him that, we were not booking him. He was owed that courtesy, and he was unfortunately not given that courtesy. He did deserve to be told ahead of time, just like Simon was, and we didn't tell him either. And those are the two guys that, I think we did wrong by them in that regard. But, to be told that the wrong person died, no, that don't fly with me.
Yeah, that wasn't cool. No, I agree.
Definitely stiff.
I agree.
Well,
I went too far. Yeah.
Well, I feel it's a good place to put a pin in it. I know Howard just brought up a name that I think we haven't even discussed yet, in terms of Dusty, and I know you co-wrote a book with him or wrote the book for him, or I don't know exactly, but I think that's definitely something that is going to take more than we're already 2 hours in.
I see that. I'm like, holy crap.
I think that time flies, but I think that's definitely something we would want to touch on another podcast. But I'm afraid to dive into it now. We'll be on hour 3 before you know it, because that's for sure substantive. But I know that at least Anthony's run out of names for now to try and fucking get you to whatever. I know he's trying to trip you up. He's trying to trip you up, and you have deftly handled the what do you call it? The Spartan race that he's thrown in front of you when it comes to.
I thought I was having that Luke Spector.
Well, look. Here's the thing. Bruce was at one time one of my favorite people in the wrestling business. I would do anything for the guy. Look, one of the things that I made sure happened when we did our thing with Ring of Honor, right, the week that we did WrestleMania, a lot of people don't realize. So Bruce wins the Ring Warriors Grand Championship that Thursday night. Friday night, he defends his title for the first time. He defends it against Wes Briscoe on the Ring of Honor card at the War Memorial Auditorium in Fort Lauderdale. I made arrangements with Ring of Honor so we can get the rub back from the major company that our championship would be on the line on their card.
Right.
Okay, that's great exposure for our brand, and it was great exposure for Bruce.
Yeah.
To be on the card in that same building with all of those guys.
I think when you're like in the state Bruce was in a lot of the time, you don't have the perspective you need to look at. But he
did it that time. Listen, at that time he wasn't that bad. I don't know what happened. Sometimes guys start to believe their own press.
Yeah.
We put a lot behind Bruce. We built him up to be this invincible character, right?
Yeah.
We made him this larger-than-life figure for our television because, quite frankly, he was our Hulk Hogan. That was the model that we were going after. I wanted the biggest, best-looking, legitimate-looking champion, okay? Somebody that if you looked at, you could say, Jesus Christ, this guy could really beat the shit out of you, right?
And he has.
And when you look at Bruce,
he has some
and when
of
you
that
look at Bruce,
it
that's
factor.
the way Bruce carries himself.
He has the it factor. He can talk, all that stuff.
Bruce, when he was on, could be as good as anybody. But I was warned by people in the WWF, where he had gotten a look at, that he might not necessarily be the guy that we would want overall. And they knew something that I didn't, or that we didn't. And that was that little bit of instability that he had. But, would I change anything? No, in hindsight, I wouldn't have changed anything, except maybe been a little bit more tougher love and trying to get him help sooner than later, like I said, I don't wish anything ill of Bruce. I'm glad that he is in a good headspace right now, from what I hear. I'm glad that he is taking care of himself. And if I saw him in a room, I would go over and extend my hand. And if he takes my hand, fine. Like I said,
I think that's all it
if
would
he
take.
apologized,
I think that's all it would take.
if he apologized, I would accept his apology and move on.
I'm 100% sure if you two were in the same room together, it would just naturally go that way. And listen, me and AJ love the guy, but we never had to do business with the guy. You know what I mean? We never had to rely on him being responsible for us. You know what I mean? So it's a totally different dynamic. But
understand.
But we can obviously put ourselves in your shoes and see, and especially when you say things that we didn't know before. Like, I mean, telling you that you should have died. I mean, that's insane. And obviously, that's something that comes from someone off of hurt feelings and they're not in their right mind. And obviously, if and I'm not apologizing for Bruce, but I think Bruce well enough to know that that's not Bruce. At the end of the day, that's whatever Bruce became. And like you said, believing his own stuff or being in a bad place or dealing with his demons or whatever it is, that was the perfect storm of you catching that. But again, nothing was resolved from that. So that's the last lingering moment you kind of have from him, which is unfortunate, right. Which is absolutely unfortunate.
Well, look, Fonzie back in the NWA 53rd punched me in the face, broke my eyeglasses, gave me a black eye, and I saw him at CAC and we buried the hatchet. Time heals all wounds.
Let's end with a quick. Why did he punch you in the face at the 53rd? And then we're out of here.
You don't know this story?
No.
Oh, okay.
We were just talking about Fonzie the other day about AJ having a relationship with him.
We had a whole conversation about him.
It's at the NWA 53rd. Fonzie was having his issues at the time. Okay.
I didn't book. Obviously, people know this seems to be a wrestling theme. Someone having their issues at the time.
So I didn't book Fonzie for the show, even though he'd been booked on all of our shows up to that point. But I didn't book him on this particular show for budget reasons and everything like that. Right. It's the NWA 53rd anniversary show. So I'm actually in the office doing payroll, and I'm actually giving David Sierra, the Cuban,
Cuban assassin,
his payoff, and all of a sudden I hear the fucking whistle from Fonzie. It's like, what the fuck is that? And David's like, that's Fonzie. I go, how the hell can it be Fonzie? He's not even booked on this show.
This is like we're talking about from that other show.
So Fonzie went out there and he was with Buck Quartermain because Buck was defending, because Fonzie would manage Buck, and he was defending the Florida title against Cyborg or whatever. And he ends up working the show. It's like, oh God, I don't have fucking any more money. I got no more money. I'm like out. So at the end of the night, Fonzie's like looking for a payday, and I go like, Fonzie, I didn't book you. I don't have any money. He goes, what do you mean? I worked the show for you. So he's getting all hot, and it's like, look, I can't deal with this right now. I got to get the fuck out of here. It's like at the end of the night, a long night. We just did this whole huge angle with Hashimoto and Carino with the Japanese press and all this stuff. And it was just a very, very long night. So I just said, like, look, we'll talk about this later. And I go to leave. And I put my hand in my pocket. And the next thing I know is, boom, Fonzie opens up a barrage of punches on me. And I'm, like, shocked. Like, he's not going to knock me out. I mean, the guy's 135 pounds, and I'm, like, at the time, like 280, whatever the hell it was. It's like I was absolutely shocked. So he hit me in the face, and it broke my glasses, and it cut me over my eye. And I was just like absolutely in shock. And I started bleeding, and I was like, I don't need this shit. And that's all I kept on saying to myself. because I don't need this. I don't need to be. You know, it's like again, it's like another person who like is unappreciative of the shit that you do. You know, it's like, why am I involved in this business? And remember, I'm going through all this turmoil at home at the time personally. I'm trying to avoid getting divorced. I'm going through all of this shit, and then this happens, and I'm like, this is so fucked up. So anyway, they pull him off. He leaves. Bill Burns actually helps clean up my face. Nimi and that guy Devin Nash. So
I remember.
And now I'm walking towards my car. So everybody's pretty much gone. I'm walking towards my car, and all of a sudden Fonzie comes back in the car with this other guy. Now this other guy that was his buddy, definitely a drug dealer. He used to show up all the time with pills to give the guys and stuff like that. And, you know, something was going to go down. Mimi, Larry, Chris Tipton, and Devin Nash made sure that nothing was going to happen. And I remember Larry screaming, "Bill, get back into the fucking car." And then when the other guy was starting to get out of the car, he goes, "Don't even try it. Don't even try it." I remember Larry saying, "Don't even attempt it. Just get the fuck out of here." And the guys left. So who the hell knows what was going to go on? The guy could have pulled a gun and shot me. Who the fuck knows?
Over like him working his way onto a show
over
that you never
$100 payday.
Over that you never invited him to work, never talked
I
money
never
with
booked
him.
But
But
bear in mind, like every show that we had, now he claims at the time that the reason he hit me was when I went into my pocket, he thought I was going to pull out a gun.
Oy.
It's like, really? He says, "Well, I don't know." It's just like, come on. You know,
and with your hand in your pocket, you're less able to even defend yourself. It's just like a sucker's punch is sucker punch. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, yeah. Well, like I said, it's not like he was going to knock me off my feet or anything. Because, like I said, the guy, weighed 130, whatever the fuck it was that he weighed.
Right, depending how many ounces.
I've always been a pretty hefty guy. It's hard to knock me off my feet.
I mean, his weight probably fluctuates depending how many fluids he had to donate that day for a few bucks, or
well, I'm sure. Well,
or how much he lost in the ring, because we were talking about.
There were ongoing jokes for years about Fonzie about certain things, and it's like, look,
right.
That's fine. So when he was out in CAC, we actually took a picture together. It was kind of funny, and it was like, yeah, like you bury the hatchet and you move on.
Right.
Like, who cares? Because it's in the grand scheme of things, it meant nothing.
I agree. I think
we told the Fonzie story. We told the Fonzie story the other day where he wasn't booked on the show down in South Florida, and he wasn't at the show, wasn't booked on the show, but at the after party, we're in a room, like a hotel room, and all of a sudden there's a knock at the door. We open the door, and it's Fonzie. But he wasn't on the show. He wasn't even like anywhere to be seen until the knock at the door. We opened the door, and he was like, "Hey!" I think he came in with a joint, and or did he have his own joint, or did he? I don't even remember. And we were like, "Where the hell did he come from?" He wasn't even anywhere near the show, and just showed up.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
We were like, "How did he even know?" Like Sabu and Sandman were on the show, but I don't know what he was doing in Fort Lauderdale that moment to show.
But he hung out with us. He didn't go to Sabu's room or Sandman's room.
Right, he hung out with us for like an hour.
At least.
Daddy.
Yeah, he smoked everybody's stuff, and then all of a sudden we looked, he's gone. He left. That was it, he was done.
But that's what makes a good story. That's for sure.
Right. Because we were like, where the hell did he come from, and where did he even go? He just disappeared.
He left like Clint Eastwood at the end of Pale Rider, just kind of disappeared into the distance.
Disappeared into the distance, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Well, I think let's wrap it up here, and we definitely have some stuff to talk about on a future show. But I really appreciate you taking the time, Howard. I think even for a different side of stories we've already told, like the Ben's balls rib. I think
Right.
I think
So we start with Ben's. So we start with Ben's balls and we finish it up with become full circle.
listen, I got 2 of them. That's how you bookmark a show, one on each end. You know.
There we go.
But we appreciate it very much, and listen, we definitely would love to have you again to shoot the shit anytime you're.
And anytime is listen. It's been enjoyable. I know it's went way longer than you guys wanted to, but.
I mean,
sometimes you ask me a question, I'm going to talk.
I
Now
like.
I don't have to record this week. It gives me an extra day off.
Listen, I like when they run long,
Put it into 2.
but AJ gets a little antsy and needs to eat every hour. So
I do.
you know, sometimes it's a little tough for him.
I
I'm surprised.
I got meatball subs to cook tonight.
I'm surprised we didn't hear any pots and pans banging in the last hour with him getting ready to cook something.
Oh, we're getting there. We're about 10 minutes away. I'm making meatball parm heroes tonight.
Sometimes it sounds like the Heat won a world title.
Over in Hialeah.
We got all the pots and pans going on in the background.
I hear you.
So I think we'll wrap it up here, and thank you very much. And we definitely have to do this again. This was fun.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. I had a good time. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
For sure.
Thanks, Howard.
Thanks, Howard.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right.